Well, David.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Third time's a
Yeah.
charm.
Finally, the technology's working.
Mercy.
Then you got booted and helped me out.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Cool. Thanks for having me back.
I think last time we were talking about your experiences driving Uber and seeing our decaying young adult population.
Oh, mercy.
And last night was Halloween. Were you out on the Uber last night?
I was.
Any craziness?
It was fairly tame.
Was it
Tempe
like-
was interesting. There was a lot of parties going on. So
They go from like slutty college girl to slutty like
more slutty,
beeline
more slutty college girl with ears. That was about it.
I see.
Yeah, they're not really committed to costumes. Not really. The guys are. There were some cool guy costumes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, some cows, different characters from like Pokemon or anime or manga or stuff like that. So it's kind of fun.
But the girls just
No. Slutty witch, slutty vampires, slutty ghosts, slutty whatever.
Did you see a lot of cheetahs?
No. Not at the college level.
feels like cheetahs were supposed to be hot this season.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
everyone was dressing up like it.
No.
Cheetah print's coming back. I've seen.
Maybe.
I don't know why. It
70s
shouldn't.
are back. Yay.
I don't think cheetah print should
It was
come
a
back.
horrible fashion
No,
decade.
it's not cheetah print. It's leopard.
It looks the same.
No, it doesn't.
If we had internet, we'd look it up.
Fight.
What's the difference between
Leopard?
cheetah print and leopard?
I would look it up, but you have no internet.
Okay, well,
Oh, they didn't fix it yet?
if they did, we just don't know.
Busted.
I think they should have, but yeah, I don't know. I just know everyone.
That was fun.
All the girls I know keep on. See, look, we just talked to our chick. She's not wearing headphones because you don't want to mess up your
I'm
perfect
not
little hair.
going to put on headphones.
What do you got a meeting at 12?
That meeting with Preston that I was telling you about, I got rescheduled too. Like my whole week got rescheduled and pushed to today.
I see.
So
I see.
it's all good.
Is Preston your brother or his partner?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What's your brother's name?
Jesse. Which brother?
Hi.
Jesse, Chris, John,
Do you have any sisters?
Elizabeth, and Jennifer.
Oh, okay. It's a pretty big family, David.
Yeah.
Where do you guys live? Didn't you live overseas?
Yeah, we lived in Germany for a year and a half. We lived in Nevada, North Carolina, Mississippi, upstate New York for a long time, Utah, Colorado for a little bit, and then Germany for a year and a half. So 5 grade schools, ask me about that. 4 high schools, ask me about that.
Was it good?
Some of
Did
it.
you like it? Or
Some
not
of it.
really?
You don't like leaving your friends, but you also don't have any choice in the matter.
Do you keep any of the friends over? Not really. It's kind of like,
No.
no. You just kind of move on.
Yeah, it's like wherever you are, that's your friend group. Whoever you're around, those are your friends, which is good because you make friends really easy and quickly. And
I guess you didn't really have like the communication devices we have now. You weren't emailing back then.
no, you could write letters longhand.
Yeah, that's kind of.
That's where pen pals came from. It's because you actually pick up a pen, write a letter, and put it in the snail mail.
It feels kind of weird though. You got like your homies back in Germany. You're like, I'm gonna write them all letters.
Yeah, we had a friend here in the States. We would actually,
Bro.
what's up, bro? We'd get a cassette recorder and record ourselves talking on a cassette player, and then mail that.
Oh,
overseas.
voice messages, huh? Oh, wow.
The longest version of voicemail.
Yeah, one-way voice messages on a cassette player. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
That is funny. Kelly, you're wanting to try this, right?
Yes, I was.
We're gonna forget here.
What does it do
Sure.
to you?
They're nootropics.
Please explain.
They're just like, I'd have to read what's in them exactly, but they're basically.
They're winter clean nicotine pouches. They put them in your liver.
They're not nicotine pouches.
It
says Zyn
on the thing.
No, it doesn't.
Sin is not. Sin is not a sin.
Oh,
Yeah, Zyn is not a sin.
Zyn
No,
is-
actually, it's interesting. Nicotine, I mean, it's addicting. But I've heard that in micro dosages,
Does it hurt?
it's a little it's a little burn. There's a little burn. It's minty, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
I just put it in my gum line like a Zyn.
Yeah, pack the pouch, stick the pillow. Come on,
I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl. I've never packed a pouch. What's up, sailor man? I'm gonna. Yeah.
You gotta spit it over here. It's nasty.
But basically, I've heard that nicotine is actually, like, it's pretty well tested, brain like cognitive
Stimulant.
stimulant. But the problem is it's been put in like cigarettes and all sorts of things to make it super addicting. But cigarettes, it's not the nicotine that's necessarily bad for you. It's addicting, but it's not what's bad for you. It's all the other chemicals and crap they stick in there.
Yeah.
But I've heard that in microdosages, taking nicotine is actually really, like, it can be very good for your brain. It can be really good for preventing Alzheimer's. How do you say that? I always get
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's, my bad.
There's no T.
The Z.
Alzheimer's. And it's not Budden either. That has T's in it.
But yeah, so that's why I've heard that it can like help create like a protective like layer on the.
So my son was smoking for a while, and he switched to vape, which I thought was better a little bit. It's better because you get rid of the 400 other chemicals that are in the cigarettes,
Right.
which is mostly a delivery system for nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had refillable vapes, and one time he spilled like the nicotine liquid all over his leg, and he was worried he was going to have a nicotine overdose because it absorbs right through your skin.
Right.
It's really,
Did
really
he?
dangerous. No, he did okay. But then when he stopped vaping and he went off vapes, he was physically ill for a week.
Right.
Like physically ill, like hated his life, gonna die.
Right.
Because it's really bad. Because it's not like, oh, I need some. It's like physically your body needs it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So coming off it is hard.
How much was he taking in like in a hit?
Oh, I don't know.
Like
Well, that's the other
milligrams
problem
a
with
day.
vapes is these guys who are vaping every 2 minutes, it feels like.
Right.
So
Always kinda taking
they
it.
are not controlling how much nicotine they're hitting.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere like the typical dosage on like a Zyn or like or a vape or whatever is like 15 milligrams or something like that.
Okay.
And in microdosing, they said it's like 0.5 milligrams or 1 milligram. You know, so it's like very.
Super low.
And their point was saying like that way you're still getting the benefits of it, but you're not like you can get off of it in a couple days or
There's
a day.
there's a threshold at which it's not addictive.
Right.
And if you stay under that threshold, then you're fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think most people, it's just the risk of like getting too addicted to it or like adding another thing to the plate of it that you're like.
if you have an obsessive personality, it's already going to be a problem. No, I was driving some other college students.
What's wrong?
Everything
Can you
okay?
talk a little bit more clear?
Who?
You.
Me? Why? What's wrong?
That's better.
Oh, just get
It
closer to
it
the-
picks it up more.
Oh, okay, sorry. You can't hear anything, so.
I just
Don't care.
I want to make sure that it's.
No, you're fine. I get it.
I said.
Yeah, yours when you talk like that.
He's way more leaned in. I
yeah,
had mine
yours,
pulled out.
Yours is yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, just
Okay, I lost my train of thought.
You were talking. we were talking about nicotine.
I was driving some PhD students.
Mhm.
They were talking about testing, and so what they do is they'll take a Zen patch before their test, and they're like, "Wow!"
Yeah.
Supercharges them for their test. It's like activates their brain, which I guess that's good. But
Yeah. No, I mean I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. The thing that gets me interested in is the fact that it can prevent like Alzheimer's and things like that, or it's helpful for cognitiveness because you see people, and I've heard a lot of things about some of these mental diseases, chronic diseases, things like that, are really stem more from like chemicals in our diet, metabolic illness, things that we diabetes, these different diseases we have from all the chemicals we're intaking,
Right.
and less to do with like they're less to do like everyone's always thought it's like, oh, it's like a genetic disease you're gonna get from your parent, but
Not
you go
so
to these
much.
other cultures where they don't have the same,
they don't suffer with it as much.
right?
Yeah, what was it in Europe? So in the 60s, there was this international coalition where they signed a treaty saying, hey, we're only going to approve. Were we talking about this?
It might have been. I don't know. We talked.
They
about it.
approved like a number of chemicals that were safe to be put in foods.
Oh,
And-
yes.
and
It
they
was
had
like,
been-
they had like at one point
And it was listed.
700 like
Right,
chemicals
total.
that were allowed.
Yeah.
And then and that was probably like what 20, 30 years ago, 80s, around
Yeah.
the 80s. And then since then, Europe's has been
They've
still
kept
say
the same-
700, and
same
ours
chemicals.
is like 10,000 or something like that. It's some way higher
Gigantic number, right?
And that's caused a lot of.
My son's over in England, and he says, he was telling us this morning Mountain.
Is he in England?
He's in England.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Mountain Dew and Dr. Pepper in England tastes the same. It has 15 grams of sugar.
Right.
How much sugar does the one here have?
Like 47.
65
65. Wow.
per. Yeah, and he said it tastes the same. It tastes better because it's not supercharged sweet.
Well, in like in Canada, I was watching. They did some hearings. What?
Change the battery pack.
That's not overly surprising. So, it's right over. It's right next to you, Kel. The other battery, so you can work on that while this keeps going.
Okay.
But it's not over. Like I was watching. They did these like hearings. I don't know if you saw that. There was like hearings with like food industry, pharmaceutical industry experts, and it was like a congressional hearing.
Okay.
You know how they do those, and then like only half people watch, and no one, like even the congressmen and
1%
people,
of
like
people
yeah,
watch
everyone's
them.
like, you know, and then the congressman like, thank you
Right.
for bringing that to
Pause
us.
for 1 second because I have to water the camera.
Okay. Yeah, well, it has to be edited anyways, but
Yeah.
anyways, so, but they were doing, and they were talking about how in Canada, or just probably everywhere else in Canada, they were talking about Fruit Loops.
Okay.
And how the Canadian Fruit Loops, like if even on the box, like the colors are like not as bright. They're kind of these because they're colored with natural like fruit juice and these natural sweeteners and
Right.
colors because Canada won't allow for
Artificial sweeteners
yellow
or
dye
artificial
7
dyes.
or 5 or whatever
Somebody
these
40. Right.
yeah. And here it's like these bright colors, and because people are like, well, that's what the kids want. That's what families want here, and they. And I'm like, do they want it, or do they just not know any better?
They have this really bad problem in inner cities called Mountain Dew mouth, where
Really?
they drink so much Mountain Dew in these poor communities that their teeth are completely rotted out, like completely. And these dentists sometimes they can't even go in and save any of their teeth.
Really?
And sometimes there's not enough jaw tissue or bone tissue left to do implants to rebuild anything.
Wow.
Because their diet's so bad and it's so much sugar and it's so addictive that they're drinking 2 liter Mountain Dews like every day.
Well, what is it? It's like 10% of food stamps is subsidized for processed or like sodas and sugary drinks.
I'm sure.
And then I don't know what the number is, but even in like school lunches, that whole FDA, school program, I don't know if it's FDA, but a school program for school lunches.
Right.
I think like 35% of it is processed food or something like some number of it's pretty high number of it is processed food.
Right.
And it's like,
the
why are we
trick shot
giving
is
kids that?
It doesn't cost more to make good food.
No.
It doesn't cost more. It takes more time, but it doesn't cost more.
Right.
But we're so addicted to now and speed and quick that
Right.
we're kind of, it's like RFK Jr. is like, we're poisoning ourselves. Why would we do that? We should seriously take a look at that.
Well, it was like I was reading somewhere that like Ozempic, for example, which has become really popular. Ozempic in Germany costs like less than half the price than it does here in the States. But yet we're paying in the States a way higher premium for this drug that doesn't cost and I think that's across the board. In a lot of these countries, drugs are like way lower, even though we are the highest consumer of pharmaceuticals and drugs in the world.
Right.
Like by an astronomical number. Yet we have the highest numbers, the highest cost, So it's like, why are we paying the,
Yeah.
because like Ozempic's not, I think it's a Norwegian company.
Okay.
It's from, like,
It's not good stuff.
no, it's not. I'm not saying.
Yeah,
I'm not saying let's
it's
get
like,
Ozempic in America.
why don't you-
why don't you get on a healthy diet and go to the gym?
There's a thing called Ozempic face for a reason because
Right.
people go on that diet. And by the way, once you take it, you have to take it for like ever.
Yeah.
You have to keep taking it forever.
Well, you didn't build any of the habits naturally.
Right. It's not good for you.
Yeah, that's the funny thing too. Is you would think that the best solution, the cheapest solution for health in the United States,
Right.
pushed by doctors, pushed by medical community, would be, especially where the biggest cause of death is heart attacks and diabetes, and basically that's the biggest one. So would be go to the gym,
Diet and exercise.
Diet and exercise.
The two most effective and least prescribed activities ever. Yeah.
But it doesn't put money in anybody's
Doesn't
pocket.
put money in people's pockets.
Except the gyms.
Except for the gyms. Yeah. Ba-doom, jinx. Yeah, good point.
I saw that, was it RFK? Is that what it is?
RFK Jr.
Yeah. He said that it was like back in the 60s or something. Or back then. It was like 1 in 10,000 men would have diabetes. Or like, but now it's like 1 in 34. And it's like.
Wow.
Well, they've got kids starting as young as like 12.
Yeah.
Having, you know,
Pre-diabetes.
pre-adult diabetes. Because we've got processed food and high sugars in the education food system. They've got, I mean, it's just crazy. It's like
And it's cheaper to buy the processed.
Well, because they subsidized it. Correct. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like on food stamps, 10% of food stamps is for drinks and sodas and Pepsi and Coke and.
You know the food pyramid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally made up by the food industry.
Mm-hmm.
It was not made by health professionals.
Nope.
It's not correct.
Well, it's like the breakfast. You remember growing up, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Make sure you get your bacon and eggs. And that's actually that's false too.
Completely.
That was made up by.
Drink your orange juice, which is straight sugar. So they load these kids up with orange juice and a muffin. Straight sugar. Send them to class. They're bouncing off the walls, and then they crash.
And then they prescribe them Adderall
Ritalin.
for
Ritalin.
yeah,
they're
some sort
Adderall.
of for their ADHD.
Because they have ADHD. No, it's diet and exercise.
Yeah.
Almost all. Yeah. Well, they
And
took
then
a
we
bunch
wonder
of
why we
ADHD.
have a bunch of mentally ill and metabolically ill kids.
No comment. Well, they took a bunch of ADHD kids and just kind of put them into not a military school, but sort of that same vibe where it's like, you're out of control, give me push-ups. Within 2 weeks, completely turned around most of those kids. It's pretty amazing. But we don't do that because we're not interested. We just rather give them a pill.
Well, that's the thing, too, is I think there's this belief from, I think half of it is obviously it's just people wanting to put money in their pockets, right?
Some of it. Yep.
That's a fair amount of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to this one thing. It was talking about, I think it was the J.D. Vance Joe Rogan podcast. That one just came out a couple days ago.
Okay.
And J.D. Vance was talking about how he was talking to a friend who worked in some big pharmaceutical company that dealt with like the opioids and things like that. And in order for them to, it was around 2019 or 2018 or something like that, in order for them to negate the legal ramifications of some of their, like, because the opioids kind of became a big no-no. And a lot of companies were getting hit with that. In order for them to avoid that, they figured out that if they gave like a pennies on the dollar percentage, like almost like a royalty or whatever, to some of the tribal communities, then they would be able to basically legally navigate and loop off their, I don't know what the term is, ramifications or liability. Because it was technically, because the tribes have basically sovereignty,
right,
where they can't be. So they basically were giving them a little, pennies kickback to the tribe so that they could avoid the legalities.
Oh my goodness!
So I think a lot of it is just corporations and people trying to put money in their pockets and things like that, and then the other half of it is, I think there are people who generally think, well, Americans don't want to have to put in effort. They don't want to have to get off the couch. They don't want to have to work. They just want to be.
Some of them.
I don't think that's a general.
Right, because Americans are some of the hardest working people.
Correct.
Now, there's others in the Middle East that work hard, and the Filipinos work super hard.
Yeah.
But Americans work pretty hard, at least on the blue collar side.
Yeah, there's always going to be some people who don't. But I think a lot of it is more of an education standpoint of people not knowing.
Right.
Like, I think of people like my parents and older than them, my grandparents, like they don't know anything about health and fitness and now granted, I don't think the food and the diet stuff was nearly as harmful back then as it was now.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily as needed. But yeah, you talk about health or fitness with that like 2 generations back. And they're like, what are you talking about? I just eat my food and...
Yeah, well, I'm not a conspiracy theorist per se, but there's this kind of concerted effort to dilute the value of the dollar. And so instead of a single family being supported by one person, mom or dad, doesn't matter which,
Right.
and being able to cover all their expenses, now it takes two parents working full-time to do the same thing.
Right.
And so instead of one of the two being home and making a home-cooked meal every day, which like my grandparents did and my parents tried to do, now there's not that time. And so now you go to the grocery store and you get, instant this and instant that and quick make this, and you throw it together and, okay, it's quick, it's easy, now we're having a meal, but it's, this over time, that kind of healthy, that diet is not super healthy.
Right. Well, even to a point is like, I don't know where I read this, but it was talking about how, some of these environmentalist kooks, who are on the far side of thinking that, these environments, they'll point out having a garden in your backyard is dangerous. It's bad. It's not. It's like, it's just so it's so counter common thinking, like common sense.
Can we say the retarded word on air? Am I going to get bleeped out?
You're gonna get bleeped.
It is retarded in the sense that it is slow of thought.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
Stupid.
Yeah.
My goodness.
No, it is. It's just it's so.
I get in trouble.
It's things that you'd sit there going, why would that be a bad thing? How is that not, versus us, these commercial farms pouring pesticides and chemicals across their field that's going to absolutely just destroy the topsoil.
Right. Why do they do it? Well, we need to be able to kill the pests that are eating the food, so we'll put it in the food so it delivers the pesticide to
The
the
consumer?
bug. No, to the bug, to kill it. But yeah. And, and the natural byproduct of that is it's in our food that we're eating all the time. Yeah.
And it's not like, the problem too is it's not like our bodies can't handle a little bit. Now granted, we shouldn't be putting like pesticides or whatever that, there's a chemical name for it. It's like,
Yeah, that's the right word.
yeah, pesticides, but there's like a glyphosate,
Glycophosphate or whatever
Yeah,
it is.
something
that's
like
in
that.
It's basically coolant, engine coolant. Anyway, it's
What is that made
chemical
by? It's made
structure.
by Bayer or
One of those.
there's a big there's
Klein, something Klein.
Monsanto.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because that's like right where my grandparents live and stuff. They've got a huge plant. But anyways,
That's right.
but yeah, they're
I don't have any problems.
yeah. But yeah, they're like putting it on there, and it's like, if we were having a little bit here and there, our body can process a little bit. But when it's on everything, our bodies weren't meant to handle mass quantities of pesticides and
Right.
sugar and all that
Interesting.
stuff.
It's meant to kill bugs.
Right.
Yeah,
Are we bugs? Now they want us to eat the bugs.
yeah,
Bug protein.
yeah.
I know.
That's like that fake meat. I'm going to use 400 chemicals in this weird process to create meat.
That stuff's weird.
Why don't you just grow a cow? Oh, I saw a really funny thing that drives the environmentalists crazy. A cow is actually carbon neutral because of the methane they produce actually counteracts all of the carbon CO2 that they produce.
Really?
It's like it was studied. I'm
That's
like,
funny.
oh
Well, weren't they
man.
saying that like?
So
the
cows are
cows-
beneficial to the environment.
Yeah,
just
because
saying.
they were saying the cows like farting was like affecting the
Cow
ozone
farts?
or something.
Yeah.
The part that gets really weird is when the people that are like pushing the environmentalist movement, pushing the fake meat, the don't grow your own food, all that is when you really dig into it and you're like, they benefit heavily on the financial end for pushing.
Who wins?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, should we really be trusting
Well,
you? if
they've
you're-
said it for years. Follow the money.
Right.
Go do your own research. Figure it out for yourself. Don't listen. Go find some research. Figure it
Right.
out. Right. Mm-hmm. But then you have this tyranny of the experts who are going to tell you stuff. But anyway.
Right. So, well, that was a fun little side
That was
tangent,
weird.
but
Yeah.
whatever. One question I was really curious about,
Okay.
because obviously we've got young people trying to figure out their path, and I know last time the part of the podcast that didn't get recorded that we redo today, we were talking about young people really finding skills and getting ahead.
Sure.
And I think that's the biggest thing is, right, getting ahead, because even if you go to college, some kids are coming out of college feeling like, I didn't really gain the skills I need to thrive and succeed and and do. And granted, college I think is good. You learn some stuff. You learn that you can, if you're really pushing yourself, you learn that you can achieve. No, you're good. Sorry. You learn that you can accomplish and achieve things. I think that's something that comes out of it. You know, I see some of my friends who are in college and they're working hard trying to learn and study. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think people are coming out of some of these institutions where they don't feel like they have the skills or the abilities to really level up and accomplish things in the real world.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to get an assignment from a professor and maybe you have to create a fake business to try and test a theory, you know. But then they get in the real world and it's like, oh, that didn't really work.
Right.
There's a lot more pitfalls to this than I thought.
So much to say about this.
Yeah.
Well, and Charlie Kirk talks about it a lot, but just look at some of the facts. So 70% of jobs that are posted don't require a college degree.
Right.
So why are we all going to college? For what reason?
Yeah, why are we emphasizing it so much?
Why do we push it? And now, okay, I don't even know where to start. So 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, whatever, going to college, learning a trade or a skill that would last you working for 40 years, totally viable. That is not viable today.
Nope.
In the past, that skill would last forever. Now, because of the information overload, information age, every 3 to 5 years, you need to learn a new skill to stay relevant. And you're not going to get that at college. You're not going to learn a skill that's going to carry you for 30 years. You have to be a continuous learner. So that's one thing that we don't tell young people about. Then we don't tell them that, oh, by the way, 60 to 70% of jobs out there don't require a college degree. Oh, by the way, if you get a college degree and you go to work, they're going to train you on what they want you to do anyway.
Right.
So what are you learning? Maybe you're learning how to learn. Maybe. Some of them. Then they also don't tell you that 40% or more of college students drop out. So they go to college, they're spending all this money, they're going to just completely drop out. Okay, so it can't be that great if so many people are just washing out.
Right.
Now, a lot of that is, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm spending all this money, totally makes sense. Why did you start if you weren't quite sure? And because there's all this stigma attached to it. You know, go to junior college, spend way less money, take a bunch of variety, figure out what you really want to do, and then go.
Well, it's become a bit of a narrative that everyone kind of puts out there, right? I mean, and
it used to be
60
true.
years ago. Well, but 60 years ago, the price of admission into college was like what 75% less than what it is now. It's just gone
more than that.
I was reading some study about that. I think it was like the average cost of college was between $2,000 and $5,000 back in 60 years ago or whatever, 40, 50 years ago, and now it's like you're spending what 35, 50,000, maybe more.
Depends on which college, and sometimes that's per year.
Right.
Some of them. Now, in-state schools are quite a bit less, but still the same dropout rates. Probably more for state schools than some of these higher, more privileged schools. And then what are you studying? So is college viable for things like engineering? Absolutely. And some schools have great engineering programs. So if you know the job you want and you're going to go get it, great.
Right.
Perfect. No problems. But if you don't, why would you start? Right? And who's paying for it? And so you have all these kids that get out of college with all this mountain of debt. And so then they're starting off even worse behind, like you were saying. I can't get a high-paying job because I got a degree that wasn't in engineering or one of the STEM classes that pays a lot. And there's some other ones. There's nursing and a few other ones. But a lot of the college degrees, even psychology, they don't pay that much. Or you're going to go to college, spend $100,000, and then you're going to go teach.
Right.
For $40,000 or maybe $50,000 a year.
Right.
It's like this cost-benefit analysis that we're not doing about.
The thing that's weird too is like, even if you just get a general business degree, okay, great. Like maybe you know how to balance a budget sheet, maybe you know how to work Excel, maybe you know how to,
Great degree.
Right. It's good information, but the challenging part is that do you actually have the skills to then go out and apply them?
No.
Because there's so much more to to it than just, oh, I know how to balance a budget sheet. I know how to put an Excel spreadsheet together.
I understand accounting. I understand statistics.
Right.
I understand marketing. I understand, economic forces that push and pull.
I know how to work with people.
Macro and micro. I understand how to work with people, generally speaking. Yeah, they're still going to train you.
Right.
You get out of a degree program and you know the basics, and now you have to go learn, which is fine.
It was funny when I came out of high school, and this is not to come at anybody who I went to high school with, but I remember a lot of friends that I had who ended up going to college and getting degrees and things like that had, like, they took their tests, their ACTs, SATs, great high scores, great testers. And granted, maybe I just didn't apply myself as well as I could have. I had other interests that I was pursuing, but I never really was great at studying, test taking. Like, that's
a skill.
That's just not how it's not a skill set I've acquired.
Sure.
As of yet. And so I didn't do well on that. But I was doing things in high school and that were very much entrepreneurial, working hard, talking to people, communicating, kind of gaining these skills that you see outside of the classroom.
Right.
And I remember as my friends started going and getting into colleges and things like that, I was like, man, like, some of these people I know who got really high test scores or going into college, they're like, have the worst work ethic, because I had done stuff with them. Just terrible work ethic. Like, yeah, they could take a test really well. Yes, they could do this, but they didn't have communication skills. They didn't have work ethic. They didn't have these different drives that I was like, these are so crucial for actually achieving anything, beyond a test, right? What, did it kick off?
Yours phone.
Oh, it just stopped.
Yeah.
Is it recording now? Okay, so as I was saying, I was with friends where I felt like, yeah, okay, they're really good at going through the textbook, remembering the answers, remembering the key principles, and taking the test. But outside of that, I was like, man, you can't get them to do anything. You can't get them to go to an event. You can't get them to talk to people. They won't show up. Right. All these skills that I'm like, from being involved are so important. And I thought it was just so funny that the education system, they put all this value on your ability to retain knowledge, to go and sit in the classroom, to take a test, but very little value. And sure, you write essays where you're like, I was student body president for, whatever, right? But it seems like there's way more value on these test scores and these numbers than the actual, can you do this? Can you apply yourself?
Problem solving.
Are you going to succeed?
And now they're using AI to do half of that anyway. So not only are we not thinking, but now we're letting other software think for us.
Mm-hmm.
So before I was just memorizing and spitting back. Now I'm just having something else think for me. There's an estimate that somewhere in the 70% range of all materials submitted in college is AI modified at some level.
That's some entrepreneurship stuff right there.
Somebody's making money.
Yeah.
Well, and Charlie Kirk has called college a scam for a lot of the reasons we just talked about. 40% of the people drop out. 70% of the jobs out there don't require it. Every single student who goes there is required to learn things that they never apply and use.
Yep.
Now, I am a fan of just a broad education, because education for its own sake is super important, and learning how to think is super important. But are we teaching that?
Right.
Are we teaching that? All right, I'm going to give you my spiel. Can I give you my spiel? Is that okay?
Please.
Because I drive a lot of kids and Uber, young people. Anybody who's under 25 is a kid, sorry. And I just talk to them about, hey, my kids are your age. What's your plans in life? Do you have any goals? Most of them don't. So
Shooting the breeze.
Yeah. So most of the time, I give them my little spiel called, if you want to pay your bills, you got to make some skills. You got to learn some skills. You got to learn some skills to pay your bills. And what I tell them is there's basically 4 or 5, maybe 6 ways to make money in life. Just generally speaking. And I don't advocate for any one. I just say there's 5 or 6 ways to just make it in life. You can get out of school, high school. First of all, finish high school. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because it's free and you're doing it anyway, so just push through. Just finish it. Nobody likes it. Everything after high school is better anyway, so just do it.
Yeah.
It just sucks. And then when you get done, you can say, I just finished the easiest thing in my entire life, because you just did. Anyway, so after high school, one of the things you could do is just go to work. You can go get a job. there's pros and cons. You have money right away. You're learning some skills, sort of. You generally start as an unskilled worker, and so you're not making a lot of money. And then the cap on that is pretty low, because all you can do is either become really good at whatever that is and then become a shift lead or a manager or supervisor. But 95% of people in that are going to cap out at some low level, $30,000 a year. No, probably 40, 45,000 a year.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more, but usually not.
Right.
Okay. But that's one way to make money and to learn a skill is you just go to work. They're going to teach you the skill on the job. You're going to learn it. You're going to do it. Sometimes you have a good family connection. They can get you a better job. You can just start working right away. So there's nothing wrong with that. Just realize that there's some pros, but then there's some cons. You're gonna cap out salary wise at some point.
Sure.
So that's one thing. The other thing you can do is go to college, which we've talked a lot about. A lot of people drop out. A lot of people spend a lot of money. Most people graduate with a ton of debt. And most people are in fine arts and learning things that cannot be applied in the workspace, and so they don't have any skills that anybody wants. That's the whole point of going to college. Go there to learn a skill. STEM, awesome. You get a STEM degree, you can write your ticket for your entire life. It's going to be great. So it's not a bad way to go, but think about it. If you don't know what you're going to do, I just tell them, don't go. Don't go until you know what you want to do. Or go to junior college, take a bunch of classes, experience a lot of different things, figure out what fits with you, what clicks. Because if it doesn't click, why are you going to make yourself do it?
Yeah.
I love accounting because my parents did. And then you get in and you just like stab your eyes out. It's the most boring as hell thing in the entire world. Who does it? But there's people who love that. Okay, great. Right? Mm-hmm. So college for specific degree programs and for specific jobs, yes, go get it. Go do it. That's fine. The other thing you could do is join the military. And now a lot of people poo-poo that, and a lot of people look down their nose at it. And it's like, it's a great way to learn a skill or learn a trade that they are going to pay you for. Right. That a lot of them, probably 80%, apply to the civilian world. So when you get out at some point, most of those skills translate over. Your leadership skills transfer over. Your mechanic skills transfer over. Your whatever team, there's so many skills. So they're going to pay your room and board. They're going to pay for your medical. They're going to pay to move you around. And they're going to pay you on top of all that and teach you a skill. There's no downside to it.
That's one thing I don't think people realize is that I think people just think military and they're like, I'm going into battle.
Right.
And it's like there are so many positions and jobs within the military bubble that are not combat.
There's accountants. There's doctors. There's mechanics. There's my son's in the Air Force. Everybody asks me, oh, is he a pilot? No. It's like 3% of people in the Air Force are pilots. It's not a large number. Yeah. But there's mechanics and service people and drone operators and drone mechanics and sensor operators. There's so much that's out there. It's just amazing. And oh, by the way, there's Air Force bases and there's security personnel. So there's people that do security and then they go into the police force or they go in the FBI afterwards or there's all this kind of cool stuff. And half the time you get in there, in some of these jobs, they're going to give you a clearance, secret or top secret or one of these clearances that when you get out of the military, they're going to pay you $150,000 just because you have that clearance to go work for them doing some of the same things.
It is, right.
So my brother was in the Air Force doing drone stuff. When he got out, he went to work for a government agency that pays him 3.5 times as much for the same stuff. I don't think so.
Is he shooting down the Chinese blimps? the Chinese spy balloons?
If he was, he couldn't tell me. So.
Anyway.
Okay, so you can go to work, you can go to college to learn skills, you can go to the military to learn skills, you can go to trade school. The upside of trade schools, they're generally 6 months to 2 years, and then you go right into the workforce making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, like fast, really fast. It's really good. And there's way more trades than even I thought about, because usually I start rattle off trades. Oh, you can do fire and police. Those are trades. All of the nursing things, those are trades. HVAC, plumbing, electric. Those are kind of the trades that we normally think about, but I found some other ones that are kind of cool. Carpenter, welder, masonry, working with cement and bricks. Painter, roofer, auto mechanic. That's another great one. Sheet metal worker, heavy equipment worker, concrete, pipe fitters, glazers, iron workers, bricklayers, drywall, tile, millwork, and oil fields. Anything in the oil and gas.
Industry.
And then trucking and transportation. That's another great skill. And that one doesn't take you very much. And
Right.
you can make really good money.
Right.
So,
But they're the ones you don't hear about as much because they're not the flashy, sexy
Right.
jobs.
well, I went to college. No, you went to a trade school. You worked for 6 months to 2 years, and now you're pulling down $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year.
You're a certified worker to
that's
go get
good
this.
money.
Yeah.
And it's, anyway, we won't bring politics in it.
Well,
Okay.
I think that's part of the issue too. Is sometimes people have these visions of grandeur in their head and it's not. Don't get me wrong. I think having a dream and a vision of, man, I want to do this, or I'd love to start this business, or I'd love to start this venture, but these young people are coming out at 18 years old with zero experience, zero skills, zero knowledge, going, I want to live this life of blankety blank blank blank, doing this, and being traveling all. And it's like, well, you should start somewhere,
Right.
and you should gain some skills in something, so that you can
Absolutely.
actually build upon that dream, that vision, that goal. Because if you don't have any skills or not, you're just going to sit there floundering, going, why is my life not like so and so I saw on the internet?
Now, and failure can teach you a lot of things,
Sure.
but that's a hard road. That
Mhm.
is a hard road. Here's the thing that kills me about what we do for young people is you're 18, you barely graduated, you couldn't even decide if you were going to go get a job or not, but you're making a decision about spending $100,000 at a college.
Right.
We're going to let you make that decision,
Right.
but we won't give you a $20,000 loan to start a business.
Right.
And we won't trust you to drink or own a gun, but you can make $150,000, $2,000 decision to go to college.
And we're gonna promote it as if it's the only option really
Right.
out there. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed. It is a little bit of a scam because it's
It
like
is a big scam. Yeah.
because I don't think people really know what they're getting into.
I completely agree. And then the last one is to just start a business. If you have a skill already or your family's in a trade or a business, just go to work for them. Start your own business. Start doing it on
Yeah.
the side. You will learn. Most people that start businesses, what they do is they end up going back to school later to pick up some of the skills that they didn't have before.
Right.
How do I market? I don't know how to market at all. How do I do my accounting? How do I at least understand it so I know I'm not getting ripped off?
Right.
How do I understand any of the sales processes? So they'll go back to school and do that. Anyway, so that's kind of my lecture I give people. Sometimes they're hostages in my car, and so they have to listen to me anyway. And I'm sure they're just like, "Oh, shut up, this old guy's talking." But some people are like, "Oh, cool, I never thought about that before," or that I'm going in the military because other people in my family are in the military. It's like, that's
Start
awesome.
charging like
Just-
$10K for your class.
Seriously, I'm just like, the doctor's in. But
Pass the clipboard back. Okay, you.
there's some other weird ones like, I'm going to be a crypto stock trader. I'm like,
Right.
dude, if you have no skills, you're just going to lose money. So
Right.
go learn
Sure.
and do it. Who cares? Go learn.
The funny part too is that education is so robust now that it's like beyond the college system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's online courses, there's online education, there's online universities, there's just tons of opportunities. But I think the one that's highly overlooked too is people, because we live in a community where it's fine, just keep going. Because we live in a community where personal connections are not really the thing anymore, right? We're not communicating a lot as a society. We're not talking. We're not connecting on a personal level, person to person.
Mm-hmm.
We're, it's all online, email, text.
We're more
social
isolated. We're more connected and more
isolated,
isolated
right.
than we ever were. Yeah.
And so because of that, I think the key aspect of mentorship has kind of disappeared. And people don't even think about, who in your direct circle could you go to who has a skill or could mentor you or could, now granted, you got to be humble. You got to realize you don't know everything.
Right.
And you got to be willing to go and say, I want to learn from you. And I think a lot of young people struggle with that because they just look at older people and go, these old people,
They don't know nothing.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And I'm like, well, he,
Well,
makes
it's like,
$200,000 a year and he's doing really great, so maybe you should ask him. You know,
right.
And
but I'm scared. It's like, well,
because you could even learn if you don't want to do what they do,
Sure.
or don't want to have the skills that they have. But at least if you're communicating, you may have people in your direct circle that you could fall upon,
love it.
and it would cost you nothing.
This like the sales environment. Sales is a trade. There's so much to sales. But if you don't know any of it, can you find a mentor? Can you find somebody who will take you under their wing and show you the ropes? So I talk to people who want to do real estate. They want to buy and sell real estate or be homeowners or apartment owners or whatever. The same thing applies. If you can find somebody willing to show you the ropes and help you, what you said is right. There's so much education out there. Where do you even start? Get a mentor. Perfect example. And honestly, everything we just talked about, most of them are trades. It's just a set of skills that you need to get to, leverage that skill to make money.
Yeah.
If you want to make money, do something that nobody else is willing to do. You know who makes a ton of money? People who work with sewer lines.
Really?
Yeah. They dig and install septic tanks. They run sewer lines to and from the main lines in the I can't think.
Do they just get big contracts to do it?
Sometimes. A lot of them are just small workers.
Oh.
One, it's heavy labor. It's difficult. It's not super difficult, but it's you have to learn how to do it, and nobody wants to do it.
True.
You want to dig a septic tank? That's disgusting. Of course, but guess who's getting paid a crap ton of money to do it?
A crap ton.
Those people. It's a good joke. Yeah. Anyway, there's all kinds of other stuff. Like the guys up in the oil fields in the Dakotas today, right now, even all year round, those guys will make $150,000 a year, easy.
Yeah.
Easy, and plus more, because it's difficult. It's not difficult in the sense that it's mentally taxing. It's physically demanding.
Sure.
But it's not undoable, and you have to learn it, and you have to be willing to be remote and go up there and be away from your family for a year, and then come back with $150,000, $200,000 in your pocket. Those guys make great money, and they work. Some of them only work for 6 months, and they're still making that kind of money. And then they're off for the winter because they don't want to be up there remote during the winter. So they'll just go work the summer and the peak season, and then they'll come back.
Wow.
Bank. They're making bank. But they have to go someplace that most people don't want to go, and they have to go do something that most people don't want to do.
Right.
To make that kind of really good money. Shipping. People that are part of those big shipping container boats.
Yeah.
Ships that travel all over the world. They make great money. It's hard. If they're working for 2 or 3 weeks at a time straight with no breaks, and then they get off and they've got a week or whatever before they turn around and come back. Great money.
Yeah.
Difficult work. People that work on oil rigs. Anyway, I can go on. There's a lot of things that we don't think about that run our economy.
A lot more opportunity out there.
Way more opportunities than people think. If I pulled a website once, it was like, I just want to look at job opportunities. Give me a list of jobs. There's like 4,000 job titles in this website list.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So one time I went through it. It took me several hours just to kind of go through it and circle things that I thought would be cool, like a demolitions expert. Right?
Sure.
I'm going to blow shit up. And you're going to figure out how, go get trained on that. And then, but you have to understand engineering, and you have to understand explosives, and you have to understand all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And there's all this regulatory body of stuff that you have to be careful. But cool. I'd like that.
Yeah.
I like to burn stuff. I like to blow things up. I think that'd be really fun.
I'm a pyro man.
I'm a pyro man. I'm crazy. Anyway, so.
No, that's
Fun
it.
stuff.
I think it's true. There's tons of opportunity out there that people don't really know or.
Vet tech.
Yeah.
Short of being a veterinarian, which is like a doctorate degree, vets and vet techs, that's just a trade. Go learn it. Take some schooling. Do it.
So how did you get into your area of focus? Because you were in operational kind of management.
Right.
So how did you find that? How was that something how was that a skill you developed? And what kind of spurred your interest in to continue down that path?
Yeah, great question. Well, I started in pre-engineering.
Sure.
I was in a 3-2 program with Duke University.
You went to Duke?
No, I was in that program.
Oh, you were in that program.
I dropped out of college because I didn't know what I would. I was spending money. I was like, I don't know what I would.
Hey, college dropout.
Yeah. But I went back 4 different times. I went to 4 different colleges trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do. So I started in engineering. I was like, this is boring. I don't know if I want to do this. I went to talk to my counselor. He's like, okay, let's change. I was so floored. I was like, what? You can change? He's like, yeah. Just change. If you don't like it, it's not for everybody. It's hard. Not everybody wants to do that. Do something else. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
I didn't have an answer, so it took me a few years trying to explore it. But two things I learned from that. One is colleges don't give a crap what you study. They just want your money.
Right.
They seriously just want your money. They do not care. Change 10 times, don't care at all.
They're like, good, you're here longer.
Yep, you're here longer, we're going to get more money. They do not care at all. But the other thing, the more important thing is you can change.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck in one track. Figure out what you like. So your question is, how did you do that? Well, part of it was going back to school and exploring different things. So I studied some psychology. I studied some geology. I thought, well, maybe I'll be a computer coder monkey. No, I don't want to do that. I studied all kinds of different things, but I had been working in business because I needed a job. Well, that job turned into a career. So I finished with a business degree.
I see.
Because it was kind of what I was already doing. But I had done a lot of different things within this business, and project management just kind of fell into my lap because it was a natural fit. It's how I think anyway. It was easy. Here's the other. I'll come back to that. There's another thing is we think it has to be hard. If it's not hard, then I'm not adding value. If it's not really, really difficult. If it's not so hard I have to overcome and be the story and it's Disney and it's no. What if it's easy? What if you like it and it's easy? Do that.
Right.
What's the problem? So that was because I'm slow and I'm dumb, and it was like, oh, well, this is easy and I like it and people pay for this? Why would people pay for this? It's so easy, but people don't think that way.
No. I think we're just hardwired as people to go climb the mountain and chase the.
I gotta whatever. Anyway, so I fell into it. It was easy. I liked it. Not everybody thinks the way a project person thinks.
Yeah.
And I used to tell people, well, I kind of think in process flows. I just see it. It's in my head. It's a big whiteboard, and there's just rows of here's how it's organized, here's how it's connected, and here's how it flows. So I kind of fell into it, and I got lucky because I had some good bosses, and they're just like, well, he's good at this, so just keep him in that.
Right.
And then they gradually increased the scope and scale and time duration of these projects, and pretty soon I was running, 5-year projects that had $100 million savings attached to them because it covered all of these people and facilities and fun stuff. And then you learn to deal with different departments, and you learn some politics, and you learn how to present things and communicate better, and anyway, that's sort of how I fell into it.
Yeah. No, I think and that's part of just life, is just kind of the discovery of what works for you.
Right.
And what your fit is.
Totally.
So not everyone's that is interesting though, that it's like, it doesn't always have to be the most challenging, difficult, strenuous, hard for you thing to do.
Right. I mean, I got to climb. I mean, you have to do some work.
Yeah.
It's work, but
there's also plenty of things outside of your career that you can apply that to.
Totally.
Like, you may suck at running. Go do that.
Right.
Go run. Go run or something.
Work out, exercise, bike. It's like the girls that do hair and nails and whatever, massage, whatever.
Yeah.
They like it. It's fun. They grew up doing it. Their parents or their aunts or their uncles or nieces or whoever did it. There's a ton of people. You know how many nail salons there are in Phoenix? They can talk you up. They can get your money.
They just talk.
Yeah.
Was set like nails like?
Yeah.
If you get a certain amount of like clientele, you can make good money.
You can make really good money.
Yeah.
It's like
Nails, hair, wigs, weaves, eyelashes. Who knew that eyelashes were a thing? People pay $80 for a set of eyelashes, fake lashes, and then $40 every 2 weeks to get them
it's like
updated.
How do you know so much about this?
I talk to people. I sit in my cars.
Right.
And I ask people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I pulled them off before I came in.
Yeah.
My Gucci
You drag on the weekends.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Shh, don't let people.
And there's like a bunch of different ones.
My wife thinks I'm driving. What?
There's like a bunch of different ways to do it too. So it's like it's
Yeah.
not just like
Hair and makeup, photography is another one that people are
one.
just like, I love to take pictures. I'm a photographer. Well, maybe, but if you're not making any money.
I'm actually low-key really good at photography.
See?
But I don't want to do that.
Right. The people who take the best pictures, they get up at 2 a.m, they drive all day, they go into some canyon or mountain, wait for the sun to come up, and they're taking pictures that sell like
really
a
well.
lot. Right.
Yeah.
But they're doing what other people aren't willing to do to go and make that happen.
Yeah, true. Well, that's kind of the moral of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who are willing to do the things that others won't do are going to succeed.
Right.
And the nice part, I think now more than ever, if you want to be someone who gets ahead and want to be someone who can achieve and succeed and, crush the competition, I guess one might say, there's never been a time that's easier to do that.
That's right.
Because people are so confused. People are so diluted in their thinking of what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. And if you're just willing to buckle in, grind, work hard, and go for it,
and learn,
you'll blow the competition away.
You will. I used to tell my kids, all right, when you go get this job, you don't have to be the hardest worker in there, but you do have to work harder than the guy next to you.
Yep.
You don't have to work as hard as your boss necessarily, but if you just work, if you put in effort, you're consistent, and you show up, and you work hard, and probably a little bit harder than the people next to you, you're going to rise and shine.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great.
So,
excuse me.
What's the you've given a lot of advice on relationships in the past as well, and I'm curious to hear what your thought process is on that, on relationships, getting into relationships, and what's the approach? What's the optimal approach to that?
Well, let's see. I blew up my first marriage, so I'll tell you what not to do. Actually, she blew it up, but it's never our fault. It's the other person's fault always. Right? Julie would be great for a podcast on relationships because she's so smart. So there's this lot of focus on finding the right person. I gotta find the right person. How about you be the right person? How about you be the kind of person that somebody else wants to meet?
Sure.
If you're an asshole, sorry about that. Why is somebody going to go out with you?
Right.
Right? If you're just trying to increase your body count, what are you offering exactly? I mean, some quick thrill and then what? Nothing long term? I see these girls at college and I drive them around and I listen to them talk and I'm just like, who is going to want you? What do you offer?
Yeah.
A roll in the hay. So is every other girl on campus. Who cares?
Right.
You can pay for it. You can get it free. I mean, what do you offer?
Well, the problem too is when you base it up purely off that,
right? The
criteria for success is so small.
Right.
It's like who has the best looking body, who has the best looking face, who's the who can plaster on the most makeup tonight,
who's showing the most skin.
Right.
Right.
And so it has no longer anything to do about anything of real value.
Right. It's not really relationships. It's this.
Don't get me wrong. If you're a hot chick, then you gotta.
Okay.
You're put ahead for sure.
Yeah. That'll fade.
It will.
You can only take so much Ozempic before it doesn't. Before it's gonna fade. Right. I don't know. No, but seriously, so I think part of it is what incentivizes. There's so many components. There's this cultural component where young men and young women don't want to hang out, and they've created these impossible standards for each other. If I'm a young man looking for a young woman, you got to be a 10. You got to be. I don't even know what the standards for men are. What are do I have standards, or I'm just looking for the prettiest girl that you can nail, and then what? Right? What are you actually looking for? And there's a lot of risk for men with women because then there's accusations, or if you do find somebody special and you get married and then they don't like you in 5 years, you're on the hook for all this financial support for a bazillion years,
right? Because
of the way society is kind of
built it. Yeah.
But then if you're a woman seeking for a young man, what are your standards? Well, he has to be a 10 and a bodybuilder and make $150,000 a year and let me do this and that. It's like, well, that's not real.
What's so funny? I was reading something about what women really value. Now, granted, the standards have been skewed heavily on both ends, right?
Sure.
What really matters.
Right.
But I was reading something on what women really value, and they said it was three things. One was, how kind are they? Not saying that are they like super nice, or are they like, do they buy me all these things? But kind in the sense of like, are they a kind person?
Sure.
And because the reasoning behind that is, if they're a kind person, then they'll be kind to my kids. They'll be kind to our kids down the road. They'll be a kind providing, like a kind individual, right?
And can you be nice under stress? Can you be nice with no money? Can you be nice when you have money? Can you be nice when you're sick on holiday?
Exactly. The second one was, was, I think it was something around protect, or can they protect,
Do I feel safe?
do I feel safe, right? And
Safe and valued.
exactly. And the third one was perceived outcome of, success. Meaning it's not that they necessarily needed somebody who could pay, provide for them or get them the big house or anything right then, but was there a perceived outcome of this person's going to be able to provide and bring in money and, take care of my kids and basically provide
Security,
a life,
really.
a security, right? And so I thought that was interesting. I think those are good values to base, what you're looking for in somebody.
Right.
Now, I think there's a whole slew of other ones underneath that.
Right.
But yeah, I think nowadays the initial receptors of what you should be looking for are off.
They are off. Yeah. Well, and you have to look at it from are we looking at it from kind of a worldly view or kind of a spiritual view? Because we're spiritual, and so that takes on a different dimension for what I'm looking for, because those things become really important. Are they a kind person? Do they have the same values as me? Dave Ramsey used to say, for success, there's a few kind of key things. One of them is both. He was looking at marriage, long-term marriage, and success in marriage, and what led to successful marriages long-term.
Right.
And so there was a few things. One is, as long as both people were over 21, that increased the long-term success of a marriage.
Why is that?
Just mental maturity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And not that younger people are anything less, but they're not as mature.
Things get hard.
But they have more. They just have. Their brain is more fully developed. I mean, the brain doesn't finish developing until 25 anyway.
So close.
Well, also you've been out of high school and into real life for a few years, so you have a little bit more experience of what life is under your belt.
Right.
True.
Hopefully you've lived on your own a little
bit.
bit.
You just said there because no one heard that.
Oh.
But yeah, you've had a little more time in post high school to kind of get your life figured out and know there's life after high school.
So high school graduates at a minimum, because if you both finished high school, that's another indicator of success, because you can at least do that part. Then over 21, then you have to have similar views on a few key things. And they don't have to be exact, but they need to be aligned. Because if your views on specific things aren't aligned...
What would you say are the most important ones? Because I hear kind of a debate on what's
I was going to give you some examples.
Perfect.
Children is one.
Okay.
If you don't have similar views on how you should raise children and how many you want to have, your marriage or relationship is doomed to fail. It's just going to fail.
Right.
If she wants 3 or 5 kids and you want none, or vice versa, or somebody was a hands-on spanker and somebody was like, "Don't you touch my kid," right? You're not going to have success. You're going to have a lot of contention and trouble in there. So
sure.
Children is one. You need to have some aligned views there. The other one is money.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is money. And it doesn't matter if either side was poor or rich. If you don't have the same views on what does money represent, what do we do with it, what are our priorities on how we manage money, and long-term views of what it's of savings and what it's for. If you don't have the same kind of views, you're going to have problems. So it doesn't have to be exact, but you need to talk about some of those key things. What are we going to do if we don't have money? What if we're going to do if we have X amount? Or what's our ideal, and how do you budget? One person doesn't budget. When I got married, Julie's budgeting was, I have money in the bank, and I'll just spend until I don't. And I was raising 3 kids as a single parent.
Right.
And so I was balancing my checkbook down to the penny. And so those views were a little bit contrary. It took some doing.
What'd you do to work that through?
Well, in the beginning, she's just like, all right, well, you just manage it because I don't want to have to worry about it. And then that led to fights because I was like, well, why are you spending money on that? And so we had some really good discussions about, okay, we need to just structure this so that it works.
Right.
One, we need to trust each other. So she would say, you need to trust me that I'm not going to go spend money on stupid stuff. I'm going to spend it on what makes sense, and I'll let you know. And then she'd say, and you need to not put the, tighten the grips on, don't spend any money, because that's ridiculous. We're making really good money together. If our money is low, then yeah, we need to be careful and we should talk about it. If our money is fine, anyway.
Right.
So it just became an important. We had to work it through.
Sure.
It's not a one and done thing. The other thing is family. Some people they're completely absorbed in their own family, and so when they get married, sometimes they bring some of that. It's like,
I see.
Don't be talking about our relationship with your parents. That is none of their GD business. If we have a problem, you come and talk to me.
Right.
That kind of thing. So it's, where does the family live? Well, I want to be close to my parents. Well, I don't give a crap where your parents are. We're going to go live over here. Right. Just as an example of things that people should probably discuss. So how close are their parents? How involved are their parents?
Versus the mama's boy.
It's seriously, if you got a mama's boy and they're always calling their mom, now having a close relationship with your parents is super important. But when you get married, the whole symbolism of marriage is your old life is dead and you're building a new life together as the two of you.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. And it's more important than your old family.
I think also part of it too is like, now I get it, if you're in a relationship where maybe the parents are just absolute terrible people,
sure,
just hard to get along with, whatever, right? Maybe your significant other is estranged from them, or it's like a really weird kind of relationship.
Yeah,
I understand that, but I feel like a big part too is how well do you integrate into their family, and how well do they integrate into your family?
Right.
Because whether you like it or not, you're marrying into that family.
That's right.
You are starting a new life, but you know what? Like, if your spouse really loves her family and she likes going to Christmas events and Thanksgiving and holiday, right? And then you don't integrate well at all, and the parents think you're kind of weird, and you think they're weird, and that's something to consider.
That is something to talk about. And the other thing is to see each other over time. How do you deal with parents? How do you deal with holidays? How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with...
How many times do you swear before you hit the back of a car?
Bleep, bleep, bleep. Oh, sorry,
Cal.
You want to see that person, and that's why when I talk to young people, I'm like, you can get as engaged as quickly as you want if you think they're the right person. But you need to have a long... You can propose as soon as you want, but you need to have a long engagement.
Yeah.
You need to see them in these situations. You need to understand all of these things about them. Pets. Do you like pets? Are you allergic to pets? You hate pets? Do they grow up with 400 cats and guess what you're going to get in your house? Are you okay with that?
Mm-hmm. I would say, too, the one thing and this is something I've learned over time, is don't confuse infatuation with the feeling of this is the right person, I need to marry them. Because I think we were all raised under the Disney perception of happily ever after, soulmates, this is my person, which I'm not saying if you believe in soulmates, I think you can, there's an argument for that. I'm not saying we believe that, but there's an argument for that.
Sure.
But I'm saying that sometimes we get so infatuated with the idea of the person, and man, they're just the perfect person, that we kind of cover up all the things that we don't want to see. And in reality, sometimes it's the relationships that maybe you aren't the most excited about. Not that you shouldn't be excited, but you're more realistic about. Or you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready to take this step. I'm not sure if I'm ready to get married yet. I don't know. Where are we with this relationship? Sometimes the most realistic ones that are like things that you're really thinking about the whole way through are the ones that are better than the fantasy infatuations that we build up.
That's true.
And,
well, a lot of times when you're friends first, you have really successful marriages. Because you were friends and there was no chemistry or any overtones or anything like that. And you got to know them as a person. And then there's a romantic relationship. And those relationships are really, really successful.
Well, I was telling somebody...
Not always.
...who was getting... I was telling somebody who's in a relationship right now, and they're kind of new. It's a newer relationship. And I was telling them, I said... They were struggling with, I think the person they're dating is pretty invested. And on the other hand, they are invested, but they kind of hold their feelings in. They didn't want to overly share them. And I was talking to them, I was like, well, how do you feel about this person? Do you really like them? do you love them? Where are you at with this person? Like, honestly.
Right.
Because they were just kind of holding it back. And the other person was a lot more open with it, sharing, kind of feeling the waters, trying to figure out where they are because it's harder. I was like, well, how do you really feel? So we talked about it and we were going through it. And I think one of the concerns that they had was, well, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to, I don't want to put myself out there and then get it, taken and hit back.
Yeah.
Which I think, to our point of what we've been talking about the whole episode, is you have to kind of put yourself out there. You got to risk it to get any reward. And you're going to meet failure along the way regardless. And so all you can do is learn from that and keep going to the next. So that's the first point. The second point I told him was, even after you're in the relationship and let's say you say I love you for the first time, great. Feels really good. Hopefully they say it back. It feels even better. If they don't, you might have a problem. But you say I love you, you move down the path. You keep going, keep dating. Guess what? There's going to come a point in that relationship, even though you've said I love you, that you're going to have a struggle or an issue and you're going to have to work through it, and you're probably going to be like, well, we said we love each other, but do we really trust each other? Do we really believe that each other love each other all the way, or was that something we just said? So even after you've said these words of commitment, they're not like the most commitment, but they're words of commitment, there still is going to be questioning, there's still going to be things to work through.
Totally normal.
And that never stops. And I think some people get hung up on this idea of you're going to hit the peak and you've made it. And there is really never any peak.
No, it's a path.
It's a path. And that path is always going to change. And it's always going to be different than you think.
And there's detours and there's obstacles. And
yeah.
Totally normal. Well, a couple things. One is we're kind of hinting around it or talking about it. Sometimes love is not enough. You can love someone and they can be the worst person for you to get involved with.
Sure.
You love them. You love them. Okay. I loved my ex-wife. She was horrible.
I love chocolate.
Horrible.
Doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. So love, and it's kind of with your kids is a little bit the same. You can love your kids, but sometimes that's not enough. You still have to discipline them. You have to teach them. You have to, which are all acts of
stick and
yeah.
I'm
curious. But you have to do the thing. Yeah. Sometimes love is just not enough. So that's one thing. And the other thing I was thinking about is when I talk to young men, youth, 14 to 18, and you try to seed them with these thoughts. It's like, don't let your natural man, from a religious point of view, don't let your natural man pick your wife. Don't. Beautiful girls are beautiful. God made them. They're wonderful. You hope you get one. Chances are
beautiful creatures.
They are beautiful creatures. You want to look at them. We're wired that way. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But don't pick a companion, for your life based on looks.
There's a phrase for that.
What's that?
Don't let your little head think for your big head.
Wow. Don't let your yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Use your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and it goes for women.
Sure.
Don't pick a guy just on how handsome they are and how strong they are and how jovial and getting along with all their friends. Those are surface stuff. That's how you get infatuated. That's how you get attracted. Great. That's awesome.
That's what opens
the fun
the door.
part. Opens the door.
Yeah.
You got to explore all the rest. And you and I have talked a little bit about it. You have to have your must-haves, and then you have your nice-to-haves.
Yeah.
Go make a list. What are the things that are absolutely required in your marriage? And that, not the superficial, stupid stuff, but like you said, are they a kind person? Do we get along? Do we have aligned vision and goals in these areas? What are those areas? Those are required. Those are the must-haves. Then you have all these other nice-to-haves.
Right.
If they have a nice butt, great. If they're 200 pounds overweight, not so great, right? Do you exclude people? If you're not attracted to them, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, girls. If you got to go lose 100 pounds because nobody finds you attractive, that is not them choosing you. That is you need to take care of yourself. I'm exaggerating, but...
And the interesting thing on that is that I think people take that as a diss or a bad way. Also, I was not promoting being kids, just adding that in there earlier. But anyways, I think people sometimes take it as like, oh, I'm not good enough. People just don't accept me. But I would tell you, part of the problem too is you need to look at, well, generally, you're going to attract what you are. So if you're a girl who, let's say you're a little bit overweight, or even a guy if you're overweight,
sure,
and you're looking for a significant other who is super fit and has this really amazing body. Well, that person probably puts a lot of effort and focus on their diet and their fitness and their body and their looks.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're probably going to be looking for somebody who also puts a lot of emphasis on those things because it's of similar,
manage your diet.
similar value.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're wanting that, you should go make those attributes something you value.
Which circles all the way back to, don't worry so much about finding, worry about being.
Correct.
Be that kind of person. So from a religious point of view, my wife, she attended singles wards forever, where it's just all single people. And she would watch as the older guys would marry the 18-year-olds that just got out of high school and came into, I'm not looking at you, and the 18-year-olds who just came into the singles ward, they would marry them.
Yeah.
And guess what? In 4 years, the guys were divorced and back in the singles wards dating the 18-year-olds again. And so it was the cycle of...
Also kind of a good move, if you think. I'm just kidding.
Fresh meat! No,
It's the 4-year cycle, baby.
yeah, it's
I'll
bad.
be back in
And
4.
they were not happy. They were sad. They were miserable. Neither side's fulfilled.
Sure.
Nobody's happy with that. But at the same time, those guys who were older weren't looking at some of the young women who are older.
Sure.
Why? Well, because they were stuck in the young, pretty fantasy.
Yeah.
And not in, and I just tell them, well, then you're not really a man yet. You haven't grown up. You need to change your thinking. And age is a number. It's important to some extent, Matthew, but it's not the only thing that's important. And you need to look at that whole package, is what we've been talking about.
The one thing that I think really interesting, even for some of the older women or older men, is it's the same thing, but kind of vice versa, right? On one hand, the older guys looking at the younger girls,
Right.
who are valuing the surface level things that probably don't last, right? Or aren't as important.
Right.
I would say don't do that, right? There's a middle ground, right? That's a great thing. It's very attractive. But then look at what's the depth, right? On the flip side, those people who maybe haven't had as much success as the younger, pretty attractive girl,
Mm-hmm.
it's all choice, right? So if you have maybe some great depth and qualities to you, but you're not attracting the people you want to attract to your life, start looking at the skills that attract people into your life, right? So maybe, like I was...
You got to go be where they are.
Right, you got to be where
do
they are.
some of those things.
Or, like I've noticed a lot of some of these older people who maybe haven't found relationships. They're not always the most talkative. They're not the most communicative. They don't like to go socialize.
Sure.
And it's like, you know what? That's a key component to going and find somebody. So maybe you need to acquire that skill. Put yourself out of your comfort zone.
To a degree.
To a degree, right?
Right.
And not
You don't
to
have
say...
to change who you are.
No,
be
exactly.
An
Like,
extrovert, but
right. You're always gonna have skills, but it's always like, don't place a limiting belief upon yourself that holds you back from achieving a version of yourself that you could be, like the next best version of yourself.
Right.
Because we're always growing. It's like you can always look at it and say, well, there's no way I could ever do that because or you could say, you know what?
let's try it.
Let's try it. Let me try to acquire that skill.
Let me talk about online dating platforms.
Yeah.
Because 20 or 30 years ago, she's shaking her head. 20 or 30 years ago, when they first started,
Yeah.
they were more like bulletin boards. But now what we have is kind of this trend in society to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And so who's out there on these profiles
Catfish.
isn't real. It's catfish. It's 200 filters. It's I'm not really that person.
Right.
Or the flip side is like, well, I don't feel good about how I look or who I am, so I'm just not going to be on those first of all, those platforms, generally speaking, don't work.
Sure.
Maybe for 1% of the people. Most of the time, it doesn't work.
It's very challenging.
If you go out and ask people in the last 10 years, how did you find the person you met? School? Work? Church? Club? Bar?
Oh, you mean places of similar interest?
Places of similar interest. Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Not so many people at the gym. Everybody was like, I'm going to go meet a hottie at the gym.
I know. I
Maybe.
heard someone told me once we were working out at the gym. He said, "Some of the best advice I ever got was never marry or date a chick from the gym." And somebody was like, "Why?" Because that's the best she'll ever look.
Oh,
And I was like,
And the vice versa. It's probably the best you're ever going to look,
right.
too, because
I was like, wow, okay.
that's interesting.
And I don't know about that. I mean, hot, sweaty, and no.
Yeah, but most of the time it's and then you ask people, how did you get introduced to your spouse? Friend of a friend. 90%. Friend of a friend. Or we hung around, we had the same friend group.
Mm-hmm.
And so, people come and go into friend groups. And so they're, like you said, doing similar things. They're going to activities, not always parties. We're going to go float the salt river. We're going to go to a climbing wall. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to walk for some cause. We're going to volunteer at something.
Right.
There's lots of great ways that people meet.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of religious people, it's church. I've told people in my Ubers, I can't meet a woman. Blah, blah, blah. So we talked a little bit last time about this counter revolution called trad wives, traditional wives.
Oh, yeah.
Where people are like bucking culture by saying, no, I want a husband. I want to be at home. I want to raise a family. I want to do some of these traditional things, which are great and actually lead to long-term happiness way more than all these other superficial things.
Yeah.
But he's like, how do I find people? And I say, go to church. I don't care which church. Pick a church. Go to a church. Go to churches where people with similar values and grow up and they actually believe those values and go there.
Yeah. Well, and traditionally, people who are of faith, which is kind of a traditional system, faith and religion is traditional, they're going to have those traditional values too. So,
or they will have been brought up in them. But then once you open the door, you got to figure out, do they really share those values?
Right.
Are they interested in a temple marriage at all? Do they go to church? Do they want to go to, those kinds of things. But,
oh, absolutely.
Oh, religion was one of those other things we didn't talk about.
Oh.
Religion and politics were two other things as part of those checklists for success.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to.
The similarities.
Yeah, similarities. You don't have to be the same political whatever, but if one person has strong feelings and one person doesn't care, that can work.
Yeah.
But if you have strong feelings and you're on the opposite side, just call it. You're cooked. It's over. Same thing with religion. If one person is really strong into religious beliefs and the other person is lukewarm, it could work. But if you have opposite views of it, that could be problematic. But if you pull together, and you're not here all the time in life anyway. There's times where there's give and take, and so that's okay. But have the discussion. So.
I think part of that too, and we've talked a little bit about this, is rigidness. How rigid are they in their beliefs? How rigid? Now, I think everyone has kind of core beliefs at their base that it's like, it makes who they are, right? And I don't think there's got to be some truth-based beliefs. But going back to like politics, religion, or even, we were talking about attracting somebody and your willingness to kind of adapt. I think that's the big thing, right? Are you someone who you're so firm on God and religion is fake, or God and all I believe is, are you so firm in that belief that you can't be, like, you can't discuss it, you can't have a conversation, you can't be, I've never thought about it that way. That's interesting. Let me learn more about that.
Sure.
Same with politics. Are you so set in, I stand behind this party and this person that I can't? Because I think you can work out a lot of things if you have that flexibility. If your core beliefs are so polar opposite then yeah, it's like, might as well just take a hike. But yeah, I think if as a person, if you acquire the skills to be more open-minded, and that's sometimes taken in a bad way because people think open-mindedness meaning like, oh, you're just open.
You're pushover.
Yeah. But I mean open-mindedness and the willingness to hear and discuss and have good conversations to communicate, because I think you can overcome a lot of things if you understand someone's perspective. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to believe their perspective.
Right.
And in a relationship where it's close, you probably should have some similar core beliefs, because do you really want to live with that person you just completely disagree on something with, even if you can't communicate?
Well, you hit on it. Are your core beliefs common?
Right.
Because the beliefs outside of that, can you talk about it?
Yeah.
But you mentioned some really good skills, communication and flexibility. Those are great. If you don't have those,
mostly flexibility.
Yeah. If you don't have those, your relationships at all levels are going to struggle.
Yeah.
The other couple ones that my wife and I find to be helpful in our relationship, one is humor, Can you laugh at stuff? Can you laugh at yourself?
Right.
Do you get offended if somebody laughs at you? Even if they're really like belly laughing at you, are you really getting butthurt about that? Or can you just like, why is that so funny? And have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
And then can you laugh at yourself? Because guess what? We all do stupid stuff. So humor is so critical. And the other one is compromise, which kind of goes with patience. We could talk about those forever. But if you can't compromise, that might be one of the things on your checklist. Can this person compromise in any situation? If they can't, they need some serious self-development.
Yeah.
Why would you hook your train to somebody who can't be? Anyway.
One thing I found really interesting in my current relationship is when we've gone into arguments, luckily neither one of us are really, I'm not a yeller. She doesn't yell either, luckily, which is good. But we've gone to disagreements, or I've done something that irritates her, vice versa. Mm-hmm. What I've liked is that in all of our discussions, one, there's not a lot of anger. There's not, some frustration maybe, but no one's throwing anything. But what I do appreciate is it always seems like both parties are more concerned about the other person's feelings than winning the argument or proving that they're right or whatever it is, which I like. And that's been nice because, I think it just always makes any disagreement or discussion go better when both parties are more concerned about the other person in the discussion.
Sure.
And I'm not saying like in a way that's like, I'm more worried about their point being right versus my point.
I'm going to torpedo my own feelings so that they're okay.
No, right. No, you got to share it.
Right.
But I think in a sense of, let me make sure I say this right because I don't want to hurt their feelings more than necessary.
Right.
Or I don't want to be a bully, or I don't want to be a jerk, or I don't want them to be frustrated or angry at me. So let me or even asking that in the conversation, I've shared this. Are you, you're being really quiet. Are you angry at me? Are you upset? No, I'm not upset. I just feel like it. You get what I'm saying? And I think that level of having a worry or concern about the other person in the conversation is a really valuable asset when you're having disagreements.
That's wonderful. That's great. Communication is key. Patience, communication, forgiveness. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing those things, work on those things in yourself.
Right.
Can you do those things, and then does that other person do those
things? Can you offer those? Because generally you'll find people who can offer that back.
Right. Excellent.
And you'll be good reads of if they can't.
Yeah. Excellent point. One other thing that I was thinking of, there was a stake president, so one of our religious leaders, and he was talking to young people about how he could tell if a potential relationship would succeed. So he would interview them prior to a marriage, and he would interview them separately. Yeah. The man and the woman. And he would ask each of them, how do you feel about the other person? And he could tell by their response whether their relationship was doomed or would likely succeed.
What was he looking for? What were the tells?
One of the key tells was if they said things along the lines like, I'm so lucky to have met them and found them and they're a great person. I'm lucky to be with them. That was a good sign. And if they just talked about, they're a great provider and they this, that, and the other, that's not a real strong indicator of success. Yeah. But if they were like, I'm really lucky, because what that indicates is I cherish that person. I care about them and I see them for how valuable, what a great person they are, and how lucky I am that I associated with them. Yeah. So if you're I don't want to say in awe, you don't want to put people up on a pedestal too much, but because that's just not reality. But if you're just like, I'm just so lucky to be with that person. Right. That's like a huge indicator of, okay, they're going to be fine.
Right. Yeah, if you don't want to lose that person in your life, yeah.
Right. If it turns out to be this list of things, okay, there's lots of people with that list of things.
Yeah, that's
How
swappable.
Do you really feel? Yeah, swappable. That's a good word.
Yeah.
So, anyway, just thinking about that.
No, I think that's really true. That's really true. So, are we doomed on Tuesday?
Doomed on Tuesday? Oh, man. I got my fingers crossed, man. Already voted. Voted early. We voted last week. So
I'm just curious if we'll have an answer on Tuesday.
Yeah.
or if it
I
will
hope
draw
so.
out, or if it will, and then what people's reaction would be. That's always interesting
I don't want to speculate.
because I think the temperature's high,
I agree.
which good or bad. I mean, it's motivator
Sure.
to go out and vote.
Sure. On
But-
both sides, which
on
is
both
fine.
sides.
That's our, as citizens, that's our job, that's our duty, that's our right. Go do it. Go exercise it.
Yep.
And it's not going to get decided by people that sit at home and say, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, that's always frustrating. It's like you have an obligation, you know, and you have an opportunity to make a difference. So,
Right.
as small as it might be.
I've heard it said a couple times that if you're not voting, I don't want to hear your opinion about it.
Yeah.
If you're not participating. So nobody gives a flying rip what you think
Right.
at all.
Right. No, yeah. Take the opportunity to get involved and know what you're looking at and look at the facts.
And exercise your privilege as a citizen and vote.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to exercise your privilege, then shut up. Nobody cares about your opinion. Your opinions are like buttholes. They stink. Everybody has one. They all stink.
Oh my.
That's the clean version of that.
Quick version of that.
Yeah,
that joke.
That's the clean version of that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Be interesting what the next few days bring.
I hope. Here's hoping.
Get your gun, don't you? Just kidding.
Check.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you got quite the collection of guns.
Come to my house. We can have guns next time. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we should next time.
All kinds of thoughts on people giving you guns.
Always a pleasure. Was this third time? Well, I guess it's not third time, so really, doing good.
Edit out.